are looking at Israel and to people in that country being called infiltrators, denied work permits and health care, now facing mass deportation. If you saw The National last night, you would have seen Derek Stoffel's story on how Israel is getting ready to displace thousands of African migrants. And in his report, Derek mentions that Canada has become one of the main destinations for these deportees. One reason for that is groups like Canadians Helping Asylum Seekers in Israel. Dawit Damoz is one of the co-founders. He is an Eritrean refugee who left Israel, found residence in Canada, and Samara Carroll works with that organization. She helped Dawit get into Canada. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Maybe we can start, Samara, with who these migrants are who are facing expulsion from Israel.
Sure. So in Israel right now, there are about 38,000 asylum seekers, mostly from Eritrea and Sudan. And basically, they have fled genocide, they have fled dictatorship in Eritrea to come into Israel. This has been happening for, I'd say, the past 7 to 8 years. But lately, Israel built a wall, so there's no more who have been able to come in. So right now, they're in this very precarious situation in Israel where they don't have refugee status, and so they're not able to work or get health care or get secure housing and many other things. They also have kids who are being born in Israel who know that only Hebrew. Israel is their reality. And so right now, unfortunately, they're facing deportation because the Israeli government basically doesn't want to deal with the situation and hasn't processed their refugee claims.
Now, this is something you know firsthand. This was your life. What was that life like?
It was, I don't even know where to start. I was there. I was hoping that Israel is a state that was built by refugees, and I had high expectation. I was hoping to, the Israeli public understand my situation and learn who I am, and deal with my asylum application. But unfortunately, I was there for almost 7 years with no working permit and services to healthcare, like you mentioned.
How do you live?
So there's this law that the Israeli government had. We cannot give you a working permit, but we won't punish if any employer hire you. So how do you find an employer if you don't have a working permit? Mm-hmm. So this is the situation more than 38,000 African asylum seekers are living today. So now it's a big situation because of the deportation, but life was harder since the beginning because the Israeli government didn't want to deal with the situation.
How old were you when you arrived in Israel?
I was 22 when I arrived in Israel, and I was hoping by this point that I would have 2 degrees and have a job that I like, and I was hopeful. That was my dream, to go to a place where I will have all the rights that I was denied by my government, by my country.
And Samara, this was a dream for Dawit that would not be realized in Israel. The organization that you work with, Canadians Helping Asylum Seekers in Israel, helps people like Dawit. How do you do that?
Yeah. So I first met Dawit in 2012. I was working in Tel Aviv there. I'm a social worker, and I was providing support to asylum seekers in Tel Aviv. That's where I met Dawit. And then I went home that summer in 2013. And Dawit approached me, and he said, can I help him sponsor his application? At the time, I hadn't had experience sponsoring anyone before. And we worked together on it. We worked with a sponsorship agreement holder in Toronto. And the truth is, the process, it's quite extensive, but it's not that complicated. And so the idea is that working with CHAI now, Canadians Helping Asylum Seekers in Israel, we can educate more people how to sponsor refugees. Because I think that there's a lot of people who want to help, but they think maybe it's overwhelming to sponsor. They're not sure how to do it. So the idea is that with our experience, we can help other people to figure out, okay, how do I go about sponsorship? How do we figure out that piece? Because right now it seems like asylum seekers in Israel are in an emergency situation. So what can we do in Canada? We can try to sponsor more people.
Is it that Canada is a good fit, or that just any fit is needed?
Right. I'll start. Canada, I think, is a good fit. As we know, Canada has a fairly good refugee policy and is a big country, and I think there's room. I think also refugees contribute so much to Canadian society, but also as someone who spent lots of time in Israel, as a Jewish person, who believes in us really believing in never again with regards to the Holocaust, I really think that it's important that Israel also steps up. Israel should be processing refugee claims. So I don't think that Canada is the only answer, but it seems to be that right now Canada makes more sense and could provide a more immediate response.
Just to add on that, Canada is the only option, I think. No other country has the private sponsorship process, and Canada is the only option. Like, seeing myself in Israel, when I thought about the situation, I had no any option. I didn't want to go back to my home to be in indefinite military conscription or in underground prisons in Eritrea. So the only option is Canada. That's why we're trying to focus on Canada.
How long have you been in Canada now?
I've been in Canada for 2 years.
And how has the adapting process gone?
From the first day I landed at Pearson Airport, I felt that I knew that Canada would be home. I knew that I would feel home in Canada, and I'm glad that I'm here. Canada is home for me. I have endless opportunities. I am no longer worrying about refugee status or safety. Now I have to worry about my future. So it's been home so far for me.
Because that's it. I mean, from the age of 22, you are in a home in Eritrea where upheaval is constant and is the normal, and violence. And then you live for 7 years in a place where you aren't welcome, where you can't make things work easily.
For sure.
Now you're here.
Now I'm here. Now I'm free for the first time in my life. And I'm looking forward to grow and to serve to the society who welcomed me.
Samara, we don't have a lot of time left, but are you finding, because you're talking about private sponsorship, are you finding that there is interest amongst Canadians?
Yes, there is interest. We'd love the interest to grow. I think also lots of people don't know about the issue, so we're trying to raise an awareness about the issue. But I do think especially, we sponsored lots of Syrians, and I think that there are more people who want to help, and there's different ways to go about sponsorship, and so we're really happy to talk to anyone who's interested.
Samara and Dawit, thank you very much for coming in and telling us the story today.
Thanks for having us.
Dawit Demoz and Samara Carroll are with Canadians Helping Asylum Seekers in Israel. They are trying to help African migrants find. We are looking at Israel, and to people in